Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trail Talk. We are super glad you could join us today. And if this looks like a little bit of a rerun, it's because it is. Because I think there was like a weird sunspot or something that messed us up on Monday. And then, well, if you had the pleasure of watching, then you know what happened after that. But wait. That's all water under the bridge now, right?
Yeah, I think we just got a couple of gremlins out.
Yeah.
Fires.
Yeah. Maybe one of those squirrels. We have squirrels that live here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was probably a squirrel. Anyway, if you guys don't recognize my special guest, this is LaQuincey Reed. LaQuincey is currently our featured artist here at the Heritage Center, and we're actually hosting your reception tonight. If you're watching and you only live hour or two away, you have time to make it because it does not start until 6 and it is free. You can come in and enjoy some snacks and a lot of great art, really great art. So LaQuincey, you are a sculptor.
Yes.
And I was reading through your biography earlier. So when you started sculpting, like, did you go to college right out of high school?
Yes, I did.
So you went to the University of Oklahoma, and you earned a bachelor's of fine arts in studio art. So is that where you kind of started focusing on sculpting?
My time at OU is when I did focus on sculpting and painting, but I didn't take a figurative sculpting class until my junior year. And I think it might have been the second half of my sophomore year, but that wasn't something that I went there specifically to focus on. I knew that I like figures, I like the human figure, so I was painting, portraits and things like that, and so I wanted to do something figurative, so I did figurative sculpting when the time came around for me to do that. So, and I just kind of stuck with it since then.
And then you were able to work as an assistant with Paul Moore,
Yes.
who on the big land run monument
Yes.
that is in the Bricktown area up in Oklahoma City. So did you get to be a part of like when they installed all of those, or were you part of laying all that out and everything?
So when I got there, he was several years already into the project. I was there for, various parts of the sculpture. I was there for sculpting minor elements. I sculpted a lot of horse reins, buckles, belts, and horse hooves and bushes.
Okay.
Underneath stuff and on top of stuff that nobody thinks to go look at. And then I was also involved with making molds. And then whenever there was time for installation, I was there to just be there in case anything was needed. So I was involved with various elements with it.
What a great experience.
Yeah.
That must have really been something. Also, whenever you were talking about that you were painting, were you painting people? Were
Yes.
you painting faces? Because one thing, if you come to see LaQuincey's art here, you will see not everyone has the knack for faces.
Okay.
I feel like faces are hard, and your subjects, they all have a personality of their own. All of the pieces that are in our gallery it's different people, and everyone looks they're all unique. Nobody is like the same face over and over again. How are you able to do that? Because I know not all of these people are like models. You don't have models, do you? Or
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. The majority of the ones out there, I didn't have modeled. I just was sculpting. And to do a face, you have to have a basic knowledge of anatomy to get a really good likeness of someone. You have to have a very good understanding of anatomy and the sculpt variations of faces. You kind of use those two elements and So on one piece, I wanted to make sure that he had some kind of distinctive mark on him. So again, a little mole right here in his cheek. On some of them, I wanted to make sure that the nose kind of looked like it was a little bit more elongated. So, I made sure the bridge was maybe a little bit more pronounced, or if I wanted to make sure that the width of the nose was more emphasized, I might have decreased the bridge of the nose. Trying to capture a feeling or an emotion, you might scrunch up the face a little bit, tilt the head a little bit. So you start off with the basic knowledge of the anatomy, you start off with a basic understanding of, what makes a person unique and individual. And then from there, you kind of tweak everything and go from there.
Well, that is one thing in your art, that your faces are really, you really nail it.
Well, thank
On
you.
the, yeah,
Thank
I love that. It's there, everyone is telling a story. When I say it's like I'm personifying your, I'm bringing them to life, but they really are. They're all telling a story, and part of that story is what their faces are telling us, but your pieces are also full of movement. I mean, like, you can, so much movement, you can almost imagine the sounds that go with the movement of the pieces.
Yeah.
I just, there's no way that you get, there's such a story going on whenever you walk around your pieces and look at them, because LaQuincey's the one who told me a sculptor really wants you to get the 360 view. And so when you're walking around, it's really easy to get pulled into whatever that story is that goes with that piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, that's just you got that talent, you got that gift to be able to do that.
Well, I think everybody enjoys a story. Everybody loves a story. A lot of times I like to keep my stories, unless it's of a specific person, I like to keep the stories a little bit vague and let you come up with what exactly is going on. So I like to play with, an idea, a thought, or an emotion, and trying to put myself in that situation, or thinking about how I would react. What would my face do? Because my face sometimes gives away what I'm thinking a little bit. So trying to
Don't have much of a poker face.
No, my poker face is terrible. So trying to incorporate, how you would feel in those person's shoes in those circumstances, or trying to communicate something. That's what I try to do.
Right. So, do you have a name for this whole show?
Not officially, but I think we came up with the Black Cowboys legacy.
The Black Cowboys legacy.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it is definitely a I don't know, is homage the right word to the Black Cowboy of I'm going to call it kind of the Old West. Even though that, I mean, not to say there are no longer Black cowboys, but the fact that 1 in 3 cowboys working on ranches or riding on the trail drives were either Black or Hispanic. There's a lot of influence in the lives of all the cowboys and all the people involved in the days we refer to as the days of the cattle drives around here, and so because in this year 2023 diversity on the trail is the theme we are really focusing on here at the Heritage Center. I love it that we're kicking off with your tribute. Maybe tribute is a better word. Tribute to the Black cowboy and the legacy that they left behind for us.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about it is, everybody asks, how did I start sculpting things from the West? And after I was finished as an assistant on the Land Run Monument, I was an art teacher. And I was an art teacher in Jonesville, Oklahoma. And one of my students was a bull rider. He was a young Black man. And I never know that anybody Black was doing that type of deal even today. And so I researched it and learned, and there's a rich culture of, Blacks being involved with the West. There's a rich culture of a lot of historically Black towns in Oklahoma. Spencer, right down the way from Jones. I would be driving through there sometimes and see, young Black kids wearing Jordans and, riding on their horse. So there's a huge mix, and it's still going on today. There are riding clubs in Compton and Philadelphia, young Black men, Black women. And so the West really hasn't died. It's still going on, and the legacy, may have started in the Old West, but it's alive and well and continues. And in fact, I think there's a little bit of history that says it even started before the Old West. So, how far back do you want to go? Everybody's been involved with cattle as an important product, and it's just continuing today, just in terms of, horsemanship and everything that goes along with, the cattle drives and everything.
Right. And we were in New Orleans for Mardi Gras a few years back, and there was a whole regiment of, they called themselves Buffalo Soldiers. And they were Black men, women, and children riding horses, and they were in kind of uniforms and things, and it was awesome, So I feel like that is an important thing, because it's uncommon for us to see the people from the Black community in Western attire. It's more of a portrayal of someone living in a city. A city setting is much more common, or the very poor South or something like that. And there's so much more. There's so much more to the Black culture of today, even. So I'm really glad that we're going to be able to, bring that to people's attention while your art is here.
Well, I'm very happy, and I'm very fortunate to have you guys invite me to have my show here. This is my first solo show, and I'm very appreciative to you and everybody that I've met here in Duncan, and one of the Darcy Reeves, I'm sure you know, she's one of the first people that I met down here when I was, trying to get my work out, and through her I've met everybody here, and just gotten a little bit more involved with what's going on here. So it's been this place holds a special place with me, and I enjoy coming down and being a part of the art shows down here, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, that's very exciting too, to have your first show. And excuse me, what'd you say you brought? 15, 16?
Yeah, I think it's 16.
16 pieces.
Yes.
So the room is pretty full, because there are different sizes. You have some that are a little smaller, but most of them are pretty good size pieces. And so that it's a room full of beautiful sculptures. So we're going to have a special unveiling this evening. And it's a piece that we commissioned you to make for us. And we're not going to even tell you one bit about what it looks like, because you're going to have to come here. We have the maquette.
Well, it's not the maquette. This is the clay.
The clay.
Yeah, that we'll make a mold on and get cast later on in bronze.
Okay. So will there be a maquette?
So a maquette is if you intend to make it larger. That's basically the small scale. That's what
I see.
So
okay.
if you guys want to make it larger, I'm all for it.
Make a monument out of this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's only a maquette if it's the miniature.
Yeah. If you plan to make it bigger, that's what they call it, a maquette.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just the clay.
Yes.
What would you call that?
It's just the clay.
Just the clay.
It's the clay right now.
Well, you know what? It's just the clay, but it's exactly what the finished product. We can anticipate the finished product.
Yes, that's what it'll look like.
To look
get
just
that
like
same
this.
size, and The only thing that'll be different is it'll be bronze and it'll have a patina on it and maybe a wood base. So
Right,
that'll be
right,
the only thing that'll be different.
right. You know, I think it's kind of cool though that we have the clay piece here because there are people who maybe have never seen that stage
Mhm.
of a piece, and to come and see it in that form, the original work. I was thinking about it earlier. This is the part that came right from your hands.
Mhm.
You know, this is the part that your hands actually made.
Mhm.
And I think that that is really cool. It's like that's the part that came from your heart. You know, you just poured yourself into it, because it still blows my mind that sculptors take their clay and then give it to someone else to make it into the bronze.
Yeah,
I can't imagine how that must feel
yeah.
to just let that go.
Well, it's really tough, and that's why it's really important to have a good relationship with your foundries and always, you know, make sure that you go back and check and look at everything and make sure it meets up to your standards.
Mhm.
Foundries generally, if they shouldn't look like they were even there. And that's how you can tell you have a really good foundry. And typically that's what happens, but you know, you still, for your own comfort and you know, your own satisfaction, you still go out there and double check to make sure everything's looking well.
Right, right. So what we have, for a period of time, we have the original clay, and then it will go to the foundry, and eventually we will have the finished bronze piece here.
I'll make the mold and then I'll send the mold to the foundry and the foundry will cast it in bronze.
And typically, I mean, I know things take longer these days.
Yeah.
Everything just takes longer. I
Yeah.
mean, the old prime, order it one day and it's on your porch the next. That doesn't seem to really work much anymore.
Yeah.
And so what kind of a time frame are you anticipating?
See, and I just got done talking with another group about how long it would take to cast something, and for something like this in the old days before COVID,
Yeah.
when everything was a little bit more normal, I'd say 4 months maybe
Mhm.
for casting, maybe 3 months. Depends on what's going on. If they have huge monuments and things like that going on, they kind of fit you in where they can fit you in.
Mhm.
But I would say 4 months, maybe 5.
Mhm.
So maybe 3 to 5 months. Now, I hesitate to tell you, but I just.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You know, that's fair, because I mean, everybody knows how it works. There's something that the foundry needs, they can't get from here, and that place can't get from there. And so there are just backlogs. Things just they're just not as timely. But you know, we were an impatient society.
Yeah.
And so this has just taken us back a notch to where we should be.
Maybe a little bit, yeah, but when everything's just kind of like there's no rhyme or reason why something really small is taking 6 months, and then something that's a little bit bigger takes 3 months, and then it's all over the place right now.
Well, it's something for us to look forward to. And I mean, we really are looking forward to it. It's going to be such a great addition to our gallery. We're just really thrilled that you agreed to do this for us. So, the name of the piece, we kind of talked the other day just a little bit about naming your pieces. So kind of what is your process, your thoughts? And is this something that someone advised you? Like, now here's a good way to pick the name for your pieces, or does every artist just kind of do their own thing?
So with me, it's you can get a name from several different places. Sometimes you have an idea and you'll sketch it out and you have an idea, this is the name of the piece. Other times you'll sculpt something, and while you're sculpting it, you just have decided that this is going to be the name of it. This is kind of coming to life, and this is what the name is going to be. Or another times, I've had several names, and I throw it to my wife and kids and be like, hey, which name do you like better? Type of deal. So there's no real rhyme or reason as to how you name something. It just kind of fits sometimes.
And so this piece that you made for us
Mhm.
is called
Get up and go.
Get Up and Go.
Yeah.
And so what's the story behind Get Up and Go?
So forgive me if this is a little long-winded, but
No, that's okay. I think it's important. This is a permanent piece for us.
Yeah.
So I want to know all the story.
so Michelangelo, Leonardo, and they were doing two competing paintings that were going to be on walls, and one was the Battle of Chiari by Leonardo. The other is the Battle of Cascina by Michelangelo. And Leonardo was famous for not finishing everything. I forget, he probably just decided he was done and was going to want to work on something else. And kind of the same thing with Michelangelo, he never finished it. And the only way that we have any kind of record of what those look like is other artists were so impressed and they did their own copies. And the Battle of Cascina was one that was really interesting to me because it shows the Italian forces like getting dressed and getting ready, and some of them were, you know, bathing inside the lake or the river and, you know, are partly dressed, and then others are getting their clothes on together. So I've always had that image, Battle of Cascina, in my head. I thought that was a really cool idea. And I was reading the story of Nat Love, and he lived a really interesting life, and he wrote, you know, his account of his biography, his autobiography down. And he was born into slavery, you know, eventually, you know, Civil War came around and they were freed, and he was a farmer with his mom and I think it was nieces. And that wasn't the life for him. And as soon as he could, he eventually won an opportunity and got some money and went out west and decided to make it out as a cowboy. And so he went from slavery to being a cowboy, and he recounted all of his, you know, experiences as a cowboy. And he got captured by Native Americans. He was involved in stampedes and I think at one point he was lost in pitch black darkness because of a storm or something like that. And so I was really trying to meld those two kind of ideas of, you know, having a stampede, or maybe you're getting attacked by, you know, Native Americans or some cow rustlers or something's happening, and you've just got to get up and go. So I've got those two ideas kind of melded together in the piece.
So just various stages of being prepared, getting prepared for something,
Yeah.
and then the actual, whatever that incident is coming at you. Wow, that's a great story. What is Nat Love's book or whatever it's called?
I think it's I'm not sure the exact title, but if you type in Nat Love, you'll find it. He was Deadwood Dick, I think it was his nickname.
Okay, I've heard that before.
Yeah, he won supposedly the fastest at, like, you know, doing, I forget what it was, but they would have competitions like, you know, getting the horses all roped up and then doing something else, or, you know, saddled up or whatever.
Yeah, those cowboys, they were always coming up with some kind of game to play.
Yeah.
And so that was probably some little competition they had amongst themselves. So I'm going to have to read that. He sounds like an interesting guy. But you know what's funny? I mean, you list off all these things that happened to him, but probably 9 out of 10 cowboys could write the very same story, because there was experienced a stampede. Everyone experienced having crossed a river. Everyone experienced cattle rustlers. You know, they all had some run in to some degree with Native Americans. I mean, being a cowboy in those days was a tough job, a really tough job.
Well, the great thing about Nat Love's autobiography is he covers about several different time periods in American history, because he started off being born in slavery. He was basically a sharecropper. I guess that's the right term, but his former owner, they were farming on that land, and, you know, they were dirt poor doing that. Then he went out to the Old West, and then he experienced the incoming of the train, so he could no longer be a cowboy because the train came around, and he was a porter on the train.
Oh,
So,
wow.
you know, it's interesting because, you know, we think that old West lifestyle lasted for so long that it was here and gone as soon as the train came in.
Oh, yeah. Well, the cattle drives literally lasted just under 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, to think about all of the history of let's just talk just the US.
Yeah.
That little, not even 20-year time span has influenced so much of life even today.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me to think about how influential that was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a war. It wasn't like a civil war.
Mhm.
You know, it was just a lifestyle
Yeah.
that people had. And I find that to be very interesting.
Yeah.
The way its impact has just carried on.
Well, I think part of the reason that its impact is carried on, and we talked about this earlier, is that nowhere else in the world has anything like the Old West. We have talked to several people from places in Oklahoma, and they'll have a lot of people from Europe come over, and they'll want that American cowboy experience. I talked to one person there at I think they're at the Route 66 Museum, and they said they're two Frenchmen on a couple little sport bikes, and they were determined to get horse saddles and get those installed on their little, sport bikes. And the lady had to talk to her and said, you don't understand, a
Right.
regular saddle's not gonna fit on that. We probably might, it may be possible to put a kid's saddle on there, but yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so,
Yeah.
people really kind of seek that out. And I don't know how much time we have, but there's another story I can tell too.
Sure, yeah.
So when we talk about how influential the West is, there's another piece that's in the show, is called Congo Cowboy. And in the Congo, they were watching a lot of Western movies, and they really identified with the cowboys. So they were dressing up like cowboys in the middle of the Congo of Africa, and they were forming gangs. And they were taking gangster names based off the movies they were watching. So they would call themselves, my gangster name is like John Wayne or Charlton Heston. And sometimes they were watching, other Western movies that were being imported. So they were watching like Godzilla movies. So they'd be like, that's a good gangster name. My nickname is Godzilla. But it just kind of shows how far reaching the West is. That
Right.
in the middle of the Congo, we've got.
So I wonder where would they get their clothes? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of it might have come in from, soldiers that were coming in, because it was around the 1940s, 50s. So maybe a little bit of that. I have to look into that. I hadn't thought about that. I've read about them.
Because I know, like, I've had friends who've lived in, third world countries like that. And here in the States, clothes that people aren't wearing, they put it in these, like, make a giant bale basically of clothes and put it on the back of the truck. And they go out and they just cut it, and all these shirts fall off. And like, my friends were getting Eskimo Joe's t-shirts from Stillwater. There's all kinds of things and so I just was wondering, did like Western shirts come over there? And,
There might have been some
Things
trading and
like that.
things like that. I mean, it's not like they had clubs and stuff, and
yeah.
it was it's not, that was in the main city. I think it's Kashina is where it was at, and so it wasn't like in the middle of nowhere. So
Right.
it was I think it was a major port. So they would probably get clothes that way, and then on top of that, it's not exactly accurate. So they would be wearing jeans and then a plaid shirt, whatever. Could
Yeah.
be a cowboy hat and then a pair of sandals, and
Yeah.
that fit the bill.
Right.
Sometimes they were a little bit more official and have like vests and actual cowboy boots. So you just
Well, if a merchant was on top of things,
Mhm.
they would see, and they
Yeah.
would probably have a way to find.
Yeah.
It's a kind of interesting too, how in the 40s and 50s that people could find things and get things where they, in the middle of nowhere, you could have access to something just because of the network of people that you knew,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, yeah, that Cowboys wait, what'd you call that one?
It's called
Cowboys?
Congo Cowboy.
Congo Cowboy.
Yeah.
That's a cool piece. It's a relief.
Yes.
And it's one of the first time we did a trail talk and you brought some pieces, you brought that piece with you.
Yeah, I brought that in clay. Yes.
And so I was pretty excited to see it, you know, in the bronze.
Well, hopefully it looks good in bronze like it did in clay.
It does. It really does. It has a little color on it, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And it's a really unique piece. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So tell us what after, I mean, you're gonna be here January and February. What else do you have going on this year?
So I have that, then I'll be doing my show in Wyoming, and then I'll have some other shows that I'm working on as well, trying to get those together. But then I'm working on some monuments and portrait busts and things of that nature. And I'm still at the Skirvin. My studio's still there until, you know, they decide to kick me out.
Yeah. Well, hey,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good place to be.
It's a great place to be. Yes.
Yeah. So you said you're working on some monuments. What size determines if something is a monument?
It's not really a specific size, but I want to say typically, you know, life size, somewhere around in
Okay.
there. There are monuments that are half life size. I think as long as it's kind of outside,
Yeah.
but then I don't even know if that even answers the question, because, you know, you can have a monument inside a building.
Well, that's
But
true.
I
But
kinda-
something more substantial, I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I just wondered if there were kind of sizes, or is it just more what the people commissioning are
Mhm.
asking for, and then
Yeah.
what you,
I kind of think if you're gonna call it a monument, that kind of gives the connotation that's outside. So as opposed to, you know, just being a commission piece.
right?
So I guess that's how we would
Yeah.
define it.
I don't know that our monument, I don't think that they're actual life size. They seemed a little smaller. Are they life size out there?
We're talking about on
The
Chisholm.
Palmore,
Yeah, that's life size.
is it?
Yeah, it's life size.
Okay.
So the funny thing about sculpture is if something is life size and it's sculpted, when you take it outside, for some reason, it just looks
It looks
smaller. And then if you have it life size and it's inside, I think it's probably because of the surrounding area, and you can compare it with the ceiling and everything, so it kind of grounds it. But when you have big open sky and, you
Right.
know, raking sunlight coming from all directions, it kind of shrinks them down a little bit. So I think that's the reason why.
I bet you're right. I bet, yeah, that's probably so. But when we do have the maquette.
Yes,
of
you
that
do.
one, We
Yes, you
have
do.
the little miniature
Yeah.
one. I like that one. So, well, LaQuincey, I can't wait for 6 o'clock to roll around, and because we're gonna unveil the clay
Yes.
and kick off the reception for your show, and how fun. Your family's here,
Yeah.
your wife and your sons,
Yes.
and are you other family coming? And
Yeah, I think they all are gonna make a trip down here. They've been to a bunch of my little art events here lately, so, you know, yeah, I think.
well, I had a chance to come up whenever your reception was at the Skirvin
Mhm.
last year, and it was really fun. It was a really fun time. There were a lot of people, so hopefully some folks will make the trek down here.
Yeah, they will.
And get to see everything. And so, well, we are super excited. We can't wait to hear what amazing things are happening next. And thank you for being a part of just helping us teach other people about the diversity that was actually on the Chisholm Trail, the diversity that maybe a lot of people aren't even aware of. But I mean, your work is helping us spread that story, and we just really appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I don't know if I can thank you all enough for inviting me to be here, and then on top of that, you know, showing interest in my work. I'm always amazed anybody cares anything about anything that I do. So I'm thankful.
Well, it is exciting. It's great to meet someone who just churns out all this great art and then just you're just a regular guy, you know? You're just a regular guy with all this amazing talent, and it's so fun to be able to get to know you and watch your career just explode. So we're loving being on this side of it and being a part of it.
Well, thank you guys so much, and I think that we'll be doing other stuff together too,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
definitely.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, guys, come and join us at 6 o'clock. Next week on Trail Talk, we're going to have my friend Cindy Parks here to talk about the Duncan Area Arts Hall of Fame, which is happening at the end of this month. So you'll want to watch that and hear about all the people who are going to be winning awards and everything that night. So, you know, whenever we sign off, we always say happy trails.
All right.
Okay, we'll see you guys next time. Happy trails.